This is Naoki Yoshida,
This is Fern Hall.
and you are listening to Aetheryte Radio.
Aetheryte Radio.
Here we go!
Hello and welcome to Aetheryte Radio, Gamerscape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast. I'm FusionX. Joining me today, Rook and Zenidra are flipped. Oops.
We are. Oh no.
I have
Fusion went wrong and now we're switched.
I have the technology. It's okay. We got this.
Joining us today, I've made a huge mistake.
Joining me today is not preparation. There we go.
That's okay. I'll be Zen. I feel like we can pull this off, you know?
Oh no.
Yeah.
There we go. And then me and Aldi will just flip.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
work.
Summoners. I play
Guys,
Summoner.
I'm really
that's
worried
my
about
Aldi
my
impression.
boy.
I don't have anything else.
Did I get it? You nailed it! That's just like me before playing 5.3.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, April Fools. We'll do it April Fools. We'll just switch. We'll dress up. It'll be great.
Tro, we
gotta get like
upside down,
big obvious name tags.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'll be great. That'll be great. All right. So today, hands-on with patch 5.3. No spoilers. We are not talking about spoilers. If you are here for spoilers, we will get to spoilers, just not this week.
Next week.
It's first weekend with patch. We want to be nice to people. Next week we will delve lightly into spoiler territory with our patch 5.3 review.
We'll delve lightly.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna just dive in the deep end of
Well,
that spoiler patch.
what do you,
Sweet idea.
Well, so there's the review, but then there's the spoiler. Then there's the lore cast, right? That's where like review is like we jump into the pool, but then like lore cast is like we jump into the pool with scuba gear, and I don't know how like there's a scale. That's the thing, right?
I think that just your spectrum is a little different because the full delving is not until we literally go like line by line.
There's some delving, but there's also like the delving, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta space it out accordingly.
This weekend is dipping the toe in the water. Next weekend is getting in the shallow end, and then Lorecast is diving into the deep end of the pool.
With our tinfoil.
There you go.
hats,
Yeah.
Yes.
We're gonna get all the stuff James Cameron used to get footage of the Titanic, and we're just gonna go. We're just gonna all the way down. It's a really big pool. All right. So first off, news. Moonfire Fair is up right now. And it's going to run until August 29th. So if you want any of the stuff from this year, there's another set of summer clothes. You can also get the bomb balloon furnishing item for your yard. My neighbor has like a dozen of them just right there, just with the little balloons just bouncing. I teleported to my house today, and the camera angle was like from like across the little street there, so it was just like all these balloons like right in my face bouncing around. It was really funny.
So I went out there to do the event, and I walked on, then swam all the way to the island. And as I arrived on the island, Charles started talking about how you can fly in the old areas, and I'm like, oh, I'm down. I can just swim out here.
Yes, you
Because
can
I'm so
fly.
used to swimming out there.
I
The
probably would
worst
have
part
done
is
the same
I'd already
thing.
flown around in old areas and just forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would have done that. You know, that having been said, that was one of the most annoying times that you couldn't fly in 2.0 areas was for these summer events at Costa, because after they added swimming, it's like, okay, we'll swim out here. It's like, okay. It's like the game's like, hey, remember swimming? You can swim. Please swim. We're making you swim. That was, but yeah. Now
Like as I'm going out there, I'm thinking, I have to do this run across the docks so I can jump as far into the water as I can.
Right, you gotta
Swim
maximize your
slowly.
speed and distance.
Yep.
And
Totally unnecessary.
I did the same thing. Thing last year.
I know so many people who keep saying that they will like load into one of the ARR zones, and then they'll go to jump, and they just won't stop, and they're like, "What is happening?"
The sky is consuming me.
I'm on the moon. There's no gravity. Woo!
Okay, so can we just talk about flying really quick? Is the news done? The news is not done. Is it
No,
done?
the news is not done. The news.
All right,
is
let's
not
talk about
done.
flying as soon
One-
as the news is done.
One more bit of
The
news.
moment.
We'll move flying
Yeah.
up on the list. These earbuds are super uncomfortable, but they're cooler than my headphones would be. It's super hot. It's super hot today. Yokai Watch is coming back in case you missed it the first time.
With every shot that
or if you didn't miss it the first time and want to get the new stuff, That'll start up this week, Wednesday, August 18th. So we're gonna have August 19th. So that's 2 events running at the same time. There's a lot of stuff to do right now in Final Fantasy XIV. If the patch wasn't enough, now we have two events.
I'm
So,
actually gonna do it this time.
Oh yeah.
But only for the dancer weapon, and then I'm done.
right.
The dancer
Yeah,
weapon's
I
actually
don't.
pretty-
It does look.
I don't know how deep down the rabbit hole I'll go. We'll see. I'll probably I'll get the newer stuff, right? I've got Dancer at 80. I've got Samurai at 80. I've got Gunbreaker at 80. So yeah, so we'll see. But I just, that first time, man, it was rough. That grinding, oh my gosh.
So I heard and did not too.
Yeah, I keep telling myself, like, oh yeah, because I love collecting minions, I'm gonna farm every single one. And then every time I start the event, and I'm like, no, I will not. I will not be doing that.
Yeah, I specifically remember, like, going after and getting, like, a handful of them, and then I'm like, I'm gonna go and do this again and, like, go for the mount, like, the special mount. And I remember just spending, like, 20 minutes, like, on that, like, I'm gonna do it. And then I was like, you know what? No, I'm like, I can't do it. That was the first special event mount I didn't get, completely by choice, because oh my god, that was a grind. I had so many better things to do than grind out that damn glowing ghost mount. But yeah, so there you go. That's news. Flying. We wanted to.
All right. So last time on Aetheryte Radio, I was kind of the holdout. I was the person going, whatever, it's flying in places we've already seen. I was wrong, people. I was wrong. As soon as you fly, you get to see new angles of all this old stuff that weren't there before. And a lot of the stuff actually wasn't there before. They physically went and added new stuff in, which I think is amazing. I think if I'd known that they were going to take the time to like retexture and add things that you would have never seen the angles of, and all this extra
they had to brush stuff up
that they did.
Because you think of and we talked specifically about Wineport to Costa, right? Was our thing, like, can we do that, right? Realistically, and I don't know this for sure, but in all likelihood, they had those kind of little mountains right on either side, and then there was just that gap. There probably wasn't anything there. It was probably just blank zone, no other side of the mountain. It just, the texture went up and it probably just ended, and you could probably see through it. That's probably how it was originally. But now there's grass. You can't land on the grass, but there is terrain there, because you can go from Costa to Wineport. So
yeah, they added so much. I mean, even Ishgard now has actual tangible steps of faith, and you can go and land on part of them, which is super cool.
I've heard of that. I haven't done that yet, but I saw that and I was like, ooh.
That's the first thing I did.
Yeah.
I accidentally flew out of Mordona. I was like, well, I like Kurthos. Let's see what's here. There's that big chunk of Dalamud. That's like, you never see it because it's way the heck up, right? And you're flying and you're like, oh, this is where the chunk of Dalamud. I thought it was this other thing. It's there. It's cool.
Yeah. The first thing I did was go to Mordona and see where the invisible wall was around the protector of the lake, or and there was, I'm like, okay, saw that one coming, but then like the amount of like stuff you could fly over in Mordona, I was like, oh, like that's really cool. And then I did
the city itself, you can like land on the towers up top.
Yeah, and then I did the Wineport to Costa run, and then I went to God, I still don't remember which Lenosia zone it is. The one with Wanderer's Palace that we talked about, right, with the ferry. You can totally fly right by Wanderer's Palace now. Outer. Yeah. So that was really cool.
And I believe too, I'm not sure if it's by the Sapsa grounds or if it's on one of the other maps around there, but there's like secret pirate coves that you can now like fly down into, and there are these like caves that have pirate ships and things. Like they definitely went all out on this. Yeah, like there are all sorts of places they put in, and I'm so glad that they did, because we weren't sure, like most other MMOs really do just, if they put in retroactive flight, you have all these walls, and it's like, okay, well, we got flying, so whatever. But as 14 continually proves, they just went all out with it, and I think did a
definitely
really great
exceeded
job.
expectations on this stuff. Like we were, when we talked about this last week, we were like, all right, there's probably just going to be a million invisible walls everywhere. Not actually the case. Yes, there are some walls, but it's really not as confined as I thought it would be. I'm really surprised with
most
how they
of those
pulled this
walls
off.
are actually mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Or giant towers. It's funny because one of my biggest gripes just with maps overall was in Stormblood. There's, I think it's the peaks. It's like the second part of the peaks where there's like the tower that's in the cutscene where like the squad goes up and it blows up and they all die and you're like, oh no, but like in real, like on the actual zone map, like the tower's not that big. How the hell did they get so many people in there, right? Like the scale of it is completely messed up. And so now being able to like fly right next to Wanderer's Palace, I'm like, oh, this is kind of not right either. Oh well.
Scale.
Yeah.
It was interesting for me because we're going to talk about it very soon. But I was going through the main story. And at a point, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just in the old world. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I need to do. And then I just press space and I start to fly. And I go, wow, this is a perfect moment at the time of what I was doing to then just go, oh, I can fly, right? Holy crap. It just added to it, too, because it was like a perfect point in the story. But yeah, it's just amazing what they added.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with how they did that.
I am overjoyed to be able to say I was wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, like, it is pretty unprecedented because if you look at just about any other game, I mean, like I was saying, they don't necessarily do that, but 14's maps are so interesting and they really are beautiful that I feel like the team probably wanted to not, half-ass it. They were like, we go whole-ass this. We're going to do it. So, like,
both cheeks.
We're going to do this. Yeah. Both cheeks, all in. And I think it does definitely show. Now, I see in the chat that Terrell is talking a little bit about the skybox, and I know a few people have mentioned that at least compared to the other maps, the skybox is much lower. Yeah. But at the same time, the fact that they even put literally anything new in at all and made it so that we could fly between those, disjointed zones, I'm like, I'm fine, I'm good. That's okay.
I think too that comes back to kind of what I was saying with like the terrain and how it was originally probably made. You get, like, especially again like Lenosia, right? You can't go and like sit on top of Wanderer's Palace. And I wonder if, because obviously budget, right? Resources, we always talk about, what they can and can't do. I'm wondering if they didn't have that kind of budget where they're like, yeah, we can create a whole new texture map for the Wanderer's Palace in the zone. There's probably nothing up there, right, is my guess. And so that's probably why the ceiling is low, because they would have to do that much more work for everything that you'd be able to see from that height, and that was the limit.
Another thing is, and they mentioned this with the Tempest, right? Zone heights, right?
Yes.
So they made the Tempest knowing that they had to go that far down and that far up, right? So what if, the old zones don't start the same origin? Like, they don't start low enough to then let you go high enough.
That could be. I mean, and when you think about it, you could just say, well, just lower it then. Right. But how many things are positioned on that map? NPCs, quest spawns, fates, enemies and fates. That would be so many things to adjust and test and check. And so this was the easier way to do it. But and still, like, it came out better than we had anticipated.
Yeah.
And it's cool because I know some people were flying around and things that we had seen before, but maybe for newer players just kind of rushing through areas trying to get caught up. Maybe they don't notice. And someone's like, whoa, what's this castrum? I'm like, yes, you have discovered Castrum Aquilonis over there. Yeah. Because now that you can fly, it's way more obvious that it's even there. And so that's really cool for people, discovering things for the first time that maybe we've known about but weren't as easy to see. Gold Saucer is another one. You can actually get a really cool view of it now from Thanalin. So yeah,
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. They did a lot of really cool stuff.
The detail work is great. Good job, Square Enix. I'm sorry I doubted you.
They also adjusted the sylph houses in the Shroud. I read as well. So some tweaks over there. So they really, like, we weren't expecting much. We were expecting bare bones, make this thing work, and they actually touched it up. And I'm curious if it's just because even with the low ceiling, I'm wondering if once they got up there, they're like, oh, we got to tweak this up a little. We got to polish it up. I don't know. I'd be really curious to learn a little bit more about it.
I was also surprised to hear, and this is something I'm kind of dovetailing it into this because I don't know, it kind of goes into the ARR rework, I guess, overall. But apparently, did any of you realize this or hear this? Maybe I just missed it when we were talking about all the patch notes. They mentioned that they were going to be adjusting some of the loot tables and things for dungeons, like old dungeons. But they actually went in and put in some new gear sets to old dungeons. So like Stone Vigil now has Horshaphant's armor that you can get from running Stone Vigil, which I knew nothing about until people were talking about it. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad. Thank you.
Definitely tell us specifics, but they did imply there would be new, more level appropriate gear, right?
Yeah.
And that's all they told us. But that's awesome.
Yeah, they went to put some sets, and then they also, with that, put in some, like, I think wider varieties so that if you're leveling, you don't have to look like you are a fashion disaster anymore. And then they took out some of those dungeons that only dropped, like, crafting items for the, I don't know, gear sets of antiquity or whatever they were, and then replaced it so you actually get gear from them, and now you can get those tokens elsewhere. And I was like, this is also something I didn't expect.
They did a really
ARR
good job,
rework.
and the one thing I was really surprised too is they're like, so like those random chests that like just drop potions and all that random crap that nobody like that you just NPC because nobody uses, just like
Clear
HP based potions. They just got rid of the chests altogether. They're like, this chest is stupid. Just go away. We don't need you anymore. Which is always nice, because especially those lower level dungeons, I think there's always that thought, especially if you're a newer player, right, and you haven't done the dungeons multiple times. You're like, oh, that might have gear. And then you open it, and it's like, you receive a high potion. You're like, wow, that was worth going out of my way for. And now it's gone. It's changed. So that was nice. That was a nice change. Okay, so... getting into, we can't see these are always the hard episodes, the hands-on, because we want to talk about our time with the patch. But like if we were to say, so what did you guys think of the MSQ, we would all be like, it's amazing, and that's all we can say about it.
I mean, I guess like I have been at least on stream and things trying to do no spoilers, right?
It's hard.
Because I recorded my emotions fest that was 5.3.
I loved your little like heads up display of all your emotions. That was great.
I couldn't help it. I was like, I cried so many times. I had such a I had such a range of feelings this patch, and without getting into spoilers, because obviously, like we said, we're gonna get progressively over the next couple weekends more into the actual like deep end of this patch. We're in a pool, but like. At this point, on the surface, holy cow, like talk about an emotional journey through the main story quest this patch. It truly felt like the emotional arc of an expansion had been crammed into one patch. And I can't really necessarily say that we've had a patch like this before, let alone one that I feel just so beautifully in so many ways, in so many details, truly wraps up Shadowbringers as an expansion. Like, this was the first time, I think, and that's not to say that any of the story before this has been bad in 14, you know what I mean? It hasn't. It's been fantastic. But this one patch, I literally could not believe just how truly I felt we had come full circle in such a comprehensive way with all of the characters. I mean, incredible character beats, incredible character writing. I just want to go to Ishikawa and just like shake her hand and be like, thank you for being the beautiful genius that you are. Because holy cow, I just truly felt like it was an exercise in showing how you can take and optimize the time and format of MMO writing to deliver on just bringing home an expansion in all of its themes, going back to the Crystal Tower storyline and just wrapping it up. Like, it was bonkers. I don't know how they managed it.
I feel like some parts of it felt a little rushed and weird, but there's also a point where they set out with Shadowbringers. They wanted to wrap certain things up, and so, all right, I'll give them that. But going back to our original Shadowbringers review, at the time, right, I was like Super Avengers Endgame hype, right? And I'm like, it's totally like everything ended up, we say there's no bad stories. There's going to be ups and downs, right? But realistically, everything led to Shadowbringers.
Yes.
And I think I specifically called it like an Avengers Endgame level thing.
It
I
is.
was wrong. I was wrong. It was an Avengers Infinity War type thing because this was the Endgame patch. This is the one that like really just brought it all in, and it was really good. They did some really cool stuff with this, and if you haven't gotten around to it, there will be feels. There will be a lot of feels.
Be prepared.
Yeah, and
Get your
they
tissue.
answered some questions that we've had for a while, and people are finding things that have been planted for a while that we didn't realize.
Oh my
but now
god.
That
Some of those things are like,
yeah.
oh,
Mind
1.0.
blown. Like,
Not
it's just-
even 1.0. You know, going back to other things, and I can't say it now,
I
but
know.
oh my gosh.
We know that this is a little bit of a tangent. We know that a lot of the things planted at 1.0, they modified. So
Oh yeah.
So they're not necessarily directly connected, but they sure did make them feel that way.
And that's honestly that shows so much skill as well, right?
Mhm.
To take things and like not just overlook them or, go back and have to completely contradict your own lore. Wow. Or World of Warcraft.
So I was gonna say, you're so surprised. You're not telling me.
It's tough to do, right? Because when you're writing for an MMO, and especially, oh my gosh, bridging this gap from an entirely different, a partially different team with 1.0 and everything that was happening there, into how they decided to even close those servers, into how they decided to continue the legacy of 1.0 players in A Realm Reborn, under the direction of Yoshida-san, into now Shadowbringers. Like, to create story that takes into account what they did, and like, even if yes, you can see some areas where you're like, probably they didn't exactly plan for this way back when, the story still cohesively makes sense, and they made it so that it does feel like it's a continuous narrative. And
it's a masterclass.
it's amazing.
It should be the case study. Like, if you are designing an MMO story in an MMO, it should be the case study because they have these callbacks that are just amazing. Like, you see them and you're like,
and then there's these lines of like future telling like that we get. It's not even like, oh, it's like the Rising and Foxclon's character mentioned Blue Mage, and then like the next fan fest we get. It's deeper than that. Without spoiling anything, at the end of Stormblood, Tataru made us a costume. There are things in that, if you look now, you're like, oh, and it makes me wonder if Tataru is like a primal or some, like, there's some crazy shit that people have found just in this gear set. Like, what? So yeah, lots of different types of storytelling.
play. Do not skip a single cutscene. Play it.
No.
Yeah, play it. And what's so cool is that, honestly, people will tackle MMOs in different ways, and I try very hard not to be like, you have to play the game. You know what I'm like? It's one of those things where I'm like, I understand that if you truly do not care about story, if you you have gone in, that's not how you like to engage with MMOs. I'm like, I understand if you skip it. That's okay. You do you. I get it. But it is tough with 14 because really one of the biggest backbones of the entire game is the story, and it's one of the things that sets it apart from other MMOs. And so to know that people don't play it has always been like, okay, you do you, but I'm dying inside a little bit.
Right.
And I have to say that it's been pretty amazing because after the reception that Shadowbringers received, after the reception that this patch alone received, I've had at least 5 people that never played the story, never did any of the cutscenes. They have come in and they've actually watched them. And just from this alone, they were so moved that they have gone back and rewatched all of the cutscenes in the entire game. And that is something else, right? To be like, oh, hey, we're going to completely change your expectations of how you engage with an MMO and get you involved in this. Like, again, it's so good. Like, I love it. I am so happy.
If you're gonna skip something, like skip the dailies talking about like dwarf grooming kits, like that's okay. Like we don't need to worry about their beards. Like main story
They're not
though,
even real.
They aren't.
Don't tell them that. but it's one of those things. Yeah, I mean, and especially now that ARR has been revamped, you can go back through New Game Plus. There's pictures out there of people that have mapped out like the number of quests and stuff. We're still working on it for the wiki. There's a lot of changes for those quests, but they really they shortened them quite a bit, you know. So it's I part of me wants to go back and replay it. I think it would be a lot of fun, but I also don't know if I have the time for that right now. But yeah, it's
100%
main story. it's really interesting because seeing kind of the evolution of Final Fantasy XIV since its release. It's gotten more streamlined and it's gotten more solo friendly. And so for the development team, it's been a thing of they need to make that barrier of entry as accessible as possible, and they want people to stay around. So the free trial is extended now. You get into Heaven's Word. So there's a lot of stuff there, but you know, also being able to just make it easier to go through the story. It's a shame, I think, that it takes until Shadowbringers, right? Until we get like the trust system. Because I think with the trust system, that's where you can say, and then you know, one of the things for people coming into 14, they're like, well, it's an MMO. I like the main series stuff, but I'm not sure about the MMO part. It's a bummer that it takes until Shadowbringers to get to that point where it's like, yeah, it's an MMO, but like you could play most of this by yourself, right? And I don't think we'll ever get to that point where they go back and redo all that so that you can solo it, but having that option now and making it easier to get to that point, I think it will help a lot of players that really were kind of on the fence before.
So,
I really would love. I'm sorry, Aldo. No,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'd really love it if they did at some point go back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge amount of work, but like honestly, I'd almost rather see them completely scrap Squadrons. And like, I mean, not that they
I
have
remember
to be connected,
Squadrons.
but like, you know, every now and then we get this like out of the blue update to Squadrons. I'd rather almost just have them completely get rid of those and just focus at some point. I mean, and maybe they'll do this way down the road, like when the game is sort of in its decline cycle, like years and years and years in the future, you know what I mean? But it would be so great if at the very least those main story dungeons and things that you have to do or trials or whatever it is, you could go in with trust and there was more of a reason to be able to like level those trusts or have some sort of larger system with them, because I do think that it's something that, like you were saying, can make it more accessible for players and even just help people get through that main story, right? If they're waiting on DPS queues or things like that.
That's a horrible way to be introduced to the game. Like you're trying to level up and you have to do this dungeon and you're like, okay, cool. And it's like wait time, 20 something minutes. And you're like, oh boy.
And then, you know, and then you get to the next quest and it's like, oh, we need to make a buffet.
Yeah.
Please spend 10 hours doing quests to get ready for this buffet. And you're like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. And then you get into like 2.1 and it just goes on forever. It feels like that some of those early 2.0 patches, but it's much more streamlined now. And I think MMO parts of it aside, I think if you enjoy a good story, if you enjoy a good Final Fantasy story, you owe it to yourself to give it a solid chance. You know, at least try and get into Heaven's Word, right? If you know, I know a lot of people, and I think this is part of why they kind of readjusted ARR and added Heaven's Word in the free trial, is a lot of people would get stuck kind of going through 2.x just because it dragged a little bit. And so I think, you know, if you're one of those people that were on the fence, give it another shot. I think there's a lot of really good stuff in there. You just need to get past the little bit of a grind, right? It is an MMO, but it's definitely more streamlined now. So make sure to go back and do that stuff if you haven't.
It's nothing. That grind is nothing compared to its predecessor 11 or almost any other more old MMO, to be quite honest. So don't even worry about it. And they made it easier.
Yeah. And the new stuff we got is crazy good. Like I can't, I mean, it's just gotten better and better. And that's not to say that, again, like I think it's only gotten as good as it has because they have built so cohesively on the foundations. So I know for me as a player, a lot of times I'm willing to put some time into early stuff that may not be the most interesting, if I know that stuff actually has some kind of payoff down the road, right?
Yeah.
Like these characters and these things that have been set up, I know they're not just going to be like passing garbage that gets dumped at the wayside. I know they're going to develop into a story that's really worth it. So it's usually one of those things where, I mean, yeah, I just tell people like, hey, push through. And especially seeing what we got with the MSQ this time around, like, oh, it's so good. Like, I feel like I love the Scions more than I ever have.
Right.
And I
Yes.
feel like they feel
I agree.
tangible to me as people.
Great
And like, God, and tell me if anybody has more information on this. I believe they updated something with the cutscene engine. Was that right?
It definitely looks like they did. I'm not entirely sure if it's just more time in the animations or something, but
Right?
the last cutscene kind of,
Yes.
it's just
yes.
so beautiful. Like
They're
it's
so
well animated.
smooth.
I think part of it, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but they really went anime with some of the stuff in this patch, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, there's some really quality like shots and effects and stuff that they do, but yeah, it's just the anime.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, it's like the end of the last patch. We were freaking out over like pouring a glass of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, but like you were right. Like Aldino, that last cutscene in particular made me so excited because there were so many, and again, we're doing this no spoilers, but like there were so many little animation details that like we just haven't seen before, but that made the characters pop. Like it made their personalities so distinctive.
Absolutely.
And
So
I
many
was
great
so
little
excited.
things, yeah.
I was like, yes, please, more of this, because I think for so long, the like little nuggets of who everybody is and how they interact have been there, but we've kind of been stuck behind this weird thing with the like, I'm doing some motions now for anybody who's just listening afterwards, but the like, or, you know, like any of the weird stuff that you do, the little, you know, like the weird little stiff emotes that they would just pepper in every now and then. And it's like, oh, geez, I mean, if we have cutscenes, can we please get something a little bit more dynamic or filled with character? And they really, I think, started to do that. And that was beautiful. Like, it was really good.
Has in chat suggesting maybe it has to do with the removal of 32-bit. They don't have to build around that anymore.
It definitely could. They could have redone their animation tools, you know. They could have started using mocap for more than what they were using it for.
Maybe they just have like
they're finding
an extra
new ways
excited,
to...
an extra excited animator who's like, I know how to do this. I know how to do this.
Or
fast.
they're finding new ways to kind of, you know, do neat things with the engine that they have to work with, right? Because you're getting to that point where, yeah, we know that the graphics engine is outdated at this point, but they're still finding ways to like, you know what? I think I can make it so like you can like pour a pitcher of water into a glass and have, we can figure that out now.
You've been with the tools for so long, you find those, right?
Yeah. Cinnamon in the chat too. Again, no spoilers. Alice is all I can say. So Cinnamon, yes.
So she was kind of my favorite before, and now she is.
Like 100%. But also, can I just say that I outright cackled at Urianger in that last scene. Fusion, I think because of the anime element that you were saying, there's like a moment, and I'm not going to say anything else, but there's like a moment that I laughed harder than I have laughed. Like, it was so good. It was so good.
We're starting to get into spoiler territory.
I know.
Over exaggeration of facial animations.
Yes.
Is fantastic and really helps to sell certain things. Anyway,
that's what animation is about, though. You have to over exaggerate everything.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's like doing it in line with the boundaries of the believability of your world, right? But I mean, I think throughout all of Shadowbringers, and again, talking about like culminating what was done in Shadowbringers, I think that scene landed so well without saying anything more. Because for like the first time over the course of the entirety of Shadowbringers, and we've talked about this in a bunch of our other casts, right? Everything from even just like the optional little dialogue that you can get if you're like about to accept your next quest, but you stop to talk with everybody there. Like they really worked in a lot of little things, and then kind of backed that up in the cutscenes that again really solidified the characters and personalities of a lot of them, especially with characters like Urianger, who beforehand, like, he's Shakespearean, but like there wasn't a whole lot else. He's
He's a
mysterious.
stoic boy. Stoic boy.
Stoic. But like now
But
he's
he's
so
not.
vibrant and fun, and he's such a big dweeb and a huge nerd. And like I love it. And like him and the swimming thing with Alphino, like so good. And the banter between the siblings, so good. And Ishtola getting her sass in some of the patches and like really reinforcing some of the things about her character. Like all of those different things, I think really, really just got hit home in the MSQ. And that wasn't just specific to the MSQ this time around. That was something they've been building over the course of this whole expansion, and I loved it.
As we leave MSQ, I do want to pose a question. And, we can answer this next time because it'll be the review. But, best Final Fantasy story in blank years. Could you fill in that blank when we review it next time? Right? Because
32?
Right? Like,
Wow.
like, is it... Because a lot of people are saying it is the best. Like, if you take the whole game, it's the best since blank, right?
That's hard.
Right? So,
That's hard.
I got an answer, and it's controversial, so I can't wait.
Okay, yeah, I'll think about it.
I will never not be like having feels about anything Amarant related. Like,
I know, right?
It's always just gonna be there.
I just want to know where it lands for people, like where in the spectrum of Final Fantasy you put it now.
There were several times throughout the playthrough where I did yell, "This is everything we hoped and dreamed for" on Aetheryte radio. I just yelled it into the void. Like,
we should have had bingo cards ready to.
Yeah.
we should have. That would have been so fun. I do have to ask. So next week we'll have your question, Aldino. But here's a question that I wanted to ask before we leave our no spoilers discussion of the MSQ. Did a single one of us not cry during the story at some point?
And silence descends.
No, I totally did. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I cried. Okay, good.
Yep.
We'll have to take a tally of various events to see like which one triggered the waterworks for people. Like for me, like it was cool because I played it, and then obviously because the patch landed on a work day, my wife finished it up for the next 2 nights, right? And so it was interesting seeing like where she got emotional and then where I got emotional, and it was like I'm like, yeah, this is the part that got me, and she's like, really?
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
Yeah. I got. I think there's a lot of areas that I'm sure we'll all be like, yes, this one totally got me.
Oh, yeah.
But there were a few that really surprised me because, at least for my playthrough, I sat down and recorded it all day Tuesday so that I could, later do a video and release it so that I wouldn't have to spoil anybody live on stream. And because I do those videos, I voice act everything, which my voice has still been recovering because it took me 9.5 hours of just straight. I took a 1-hour break to clear Unreal Shiva. And then after that, I just did the story again. I went from 3 p.m. until 1:30 a.m. the next morning.
Oh.
And I was like, one, why did I do this to myself? But two, I couldn't stop. So there was no stopping it. I was like, I'll take a break. That didn't happen. And I was surprised that a few of the things that I think really got me the hardest were some of the scenes that were unvoiced, but because I was voicing them, and I was curious when we get into actual
You made
spoilers,
yourself cry.
Yeah.
I know, but like I want to ask when we get there, I want to ask on some of those scenes next week.
Okay.
Okay.
If they got other people just reading them, because when I voiced them aloud, I was sobbing and I couldn't even continue. And like, I'm curious to see if they hit the same.
Yeah.
If people were just reading them,
All right.
Yeah, we'll have to
We should
go
write these
over
down.
all the
Write these
different
down
scenes.
for next time.
Right. Okay, so that's 50
Do we
minutes
wanna-
on the MSQ.
Yeah, do we want to try and vaguely address what we liked about the
Uh,
dungeon and trial?
I think we can do that.
I liked the dungeon
I liked it.
right. In that because this is the end of the Shadowbringers arc, right? And so there are a lot of similarities with previous patches we've had that try and wrap things up and put conclusions to things.
You can absolutely
comparison-
see things mimic
Yeah.
from Gimlet Dark. But
The comparison we made, last week was talking about Gimlet Dark, and how we weren't crazy about Gimlet Dark. I do like this better than Gimlet Dark.
Yeah.
Really?
I do.
I think I have to contradict a little bit.
Yeah?
Which is surprising to me. This dungeon, there were two parts of it, and I have like very polarizing opinions on them, which is kind of weird. Like, on one hand, I really do love the way they reinforced the story.
Yeah.
And like that alone, I think was really well handled. And I think that it really did, again, in a way that's like very cohesive that we haven't always seen with a lot of these final patches. I think it really reinforced the feeling of what is literally everything we need to say goodbye to in Shadowbringers, and or what can we bring back to really hit those points and make sure that we don't have things that are just being left unresolved or that we haven't really been able to bring closure to. And I loved that because that was fun. There were moments where I was surprised by some of the things that we see and people that we see and things like that, right? And so that I thought was really well done. But when it came to, we've talked about this before, reuse of assets.
Right.
And like this is something that I feel really silly about because I don't necessarily think that the dungeon inappropriately it made sense in the context of everything. So it's not like I thought it was bad. But when I think about like Alamigo, for example, like the dungeon Alamigo, one thing that I really loved about that was being able to actually like go into a different part of the city and kind of progress through it in a way that like we didn't get to see otherwise, and like actually getting to see some of the beautiful tile work of Alamigo, which is such a weird thing, but when all the other buildings were so brown, I was like, okay. And like seeing some of the other things that might have indicated like what sort of context this city had before it was invaded. And even with Gimlet Dark, finally being able to go to a battlefield that is like an active battlefield with the Garleans, because we really haven't, we've heard a lot about the war, but we really haven't ourselves, I think, seen the brutality of it or like existed in that space. And so I loved being on that, war-torn battlefield. I thought that was really neat. And then like with this one in comparison, like I said, I love the story and I love a lot of the things, and there's some little teasers of possible new classes or things, in there too, which was neat. But yeah, I just didn't feel as strongly about, I guess, the environments, if that makes sense.
No, and I get it. And I think compared to Gimlet, it was better than Gimlet. I still don't think it was amazing. Yeah. But I think it was better than Gimlet. Yeah. I'm not trying to like oversell it. Like, it was like the best dungeon ever.
Oh, it's not, it's not. It's not the best.
Still better than Grand Cosmos, but
the mobs, to not name them specifically, but they were used the entire dungeon.
Yes.
The like first 10 mobs you see are the trash mobs for the rest of the dungeon.
It's interesting because thematically it makes sense.
Yes, exactly. Which is what I was going to say. Like it makes sense that is what happened in the context of the story. But boy, it sure is kind of boring. And the only thing they do is as you go through the dungeon, these exact same mobs might get a new spell or a new ability. And that's it.
Yeah.
The bosses were definitely the most interesting parts.
Oh, yes.
I feel like for me, and we talked about this last week, the things we were most excited for this patch, music was my number one.
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed with the dungeon music.
You have to, like, it's good, but it's good when you like really just sit down and listen to it and listen to the
right. There's a lot of things that it borrows from other tracks, and that's cool.
That's cool, but it's like,
but
it's
for
not
me, it was, I think, too lighthearted.
Yes.
Overall, for the situation, right, that it was trying to accompany. It was okay, right? Like but yeah.
I liked it. Sorry, Zen, go ahead.
I'm not sure if I can talk about the thing I want to talk about because it's a little spoilery, but it's not. Right. So, because in the preview for the dungeon, we saw that we move from place to place.
Yeah.
So you start in an area, she said vaguely, and someone moves you from that area to another area, and I'm just like, you moved us from below where we needed to be, equidistant to above where we needed to be. This was useless. Why did you do this? I know why you did this.
Take us to where we need to be.
All the areas, but useless.
A thing that I
Yeah.
do like about it, and it has nothing to do with what is happening in it, the name of it is like the most hilarious, like triple entendre.
Yes.
It is
Yeah.
amazing, right? As I'm playing it, I'm like, wait a second. This works like 3 different ways. This is amazing.
And we were wondering about that beforehand too.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean? What does it mean? Well, it really means something we didn't know at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the place where it was like where it was put in the story was really surprising to me, and I never expected it, and I was really, excited and delighted by that because I thought there was really good momentum there. And the music, it is interesting because it reminded me a lot of the music in Raktika and in the Katana Revel, and so I kept thinking like, oh, so probably this is gonna come full circle somehow, or we're gonna end up, or there's gonna be, and then I was just like, oh, nope. Never mind.
We'll have to remember to try and touch on this next week, because for me, I thought the dungeon landed exactly where, like, it landed where I thought it
I
would.
think that's why it has a couple of points over Gimlet Dark, because while Gimlet Dark was kind of appropriate, it was also like, all right, we're at a spot now, go over to that spot and take care of the entire problem.
It's
whereas this one was like,
it's because of the overall narrative,
shit,
right?
that's
Like,
crap
this
happened.
is
Now you're
this is
the
just
thing.
this is just a 0.3 patch, but it
Big.
solidifies and concludes things so much better than 4.5.
Oh, yes.
Like 4.5. I love this game. Obviously, I wouldn't be here if I didn't like this game more than I hated it. But God, 4.5 was not great. It was just
So how
a
about the
hard
trial?
cliffhanger. I love that music. Oh my god, that music.
I love the trial. The trial is really cool.
You said
everything-
dungeon music,
everything-
and that's the song that popped into my head, which is
It's
not the
so
right
good.
one, but
It's
it's
so
the one that was there.
good.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
so good.
I really, so even with my critique about the dungeon, I loved the mechanics of the bosses,
Oh, yeah.
and I have to just say the same about the trial. I thought that the trial one totally surprised me in a sense that, like, I had a lot of theories about who and what
Oh
we
yeah,
might be fighting.
we all did. Yeah.
And, like, of course, but, like, while some of those things weren't so far off, the way that they realized them was really actually surprising and delightful to me. Like, I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting exactly what happened, and I did really like the culmination of it. And the boss design, oh, it's so good, it's so beautiful. I don't want to say anything else,
Right.
but, like, holy cow, that's, like, one of my favorite styles. And
Yeah.
I was hoping we'd see more of it in, like, within, like, the Final Fantasy Legacy, I guess. Like, so I was really excited.
Yeah.
I know. So I was really excited about that. And then the mechanics themselves, I think, really reinforced the fight and the narrative in a way that I wasn't expecting, and that felt really creative, and that was really fun. So I
think
really
it
liked
leaves
it.
players going, why not me?
Right. It's
A little bit.
Mhm.
I can't even explain my feelings about where the trial is in the story and what it, kind of reveals to us in doing it. But it's like, yeah, it's not, if, it's the end of Shadowbringers. But to me, like, that trial in itself is so Final Fantasy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, like, it's not just addressing Shadowbringers. It's like putting a bow around the entirety of Final Fantasy in a way. And it's just insane
Yeah.
to even think about,
I think that the really cool thing for me, again, the music, right? It's listening to the lyrics that are in there. There's like, it's
amazing.
dude, seriously, Amaranth, man. Like, it's because we already knew from the trailer, right, that this was a vocalized rock rearrangement of the Amaranth theme, and just the lyrics that are in. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good.
It is.
I do have an issue with the trial.
Yeah.
I can't
Okay.
say what it is. So remind me next week.
That's fair.
I'm sure I'll remember that I have an issue with the trial.
In terms of the trial, what did you think difficulty wise?
I've
There
heard
were-
both things. Like, if I went in with a preset group, and I think a couple of people had already done it, and we had no issues, except for the active time event in the middle.
Yes,
It's
I was going to say.
rough, right?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know what happened to me, but the first time I absolutely failed it. I think my keyboard just turned off.
I had a weird issue too. So when I was first in it, this is no joke. When I was first in it, I was actually a little bit disappointed that this wasn't the case. So we get to the active time maneuver. And I think we already talked about it. It's not a spoiler. It's a maneuver, right? So this kind of is different than other active time maneuvers in that if one person fails it, the entire party wipes.
Yeah.
Which I don't really agree with, because there's a million reasons that people can't do active time maneuvers, be it mobility or otherwise.
This one especially is very. I don't know what the word for it, but it's
have an extra keyboard on standby because you're gonna break your first one.
You gotta go fast.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's a little harder, I think, than it needs to be.
And I was delighted because I was doing it, and I didn't realize that halfway through because I was button mashing so hard, I must have hit enter, and my chat box popped up, and I didn't even notice it because I was so carried away in the moment. And I'm looking at this active time maneuver bar, and he's like saying in the background, like, "You're struggling is futile" or whatever.
And the group wipes, and everyone's like, "What happened?" And Rook just says, "I
know, but like, here's the thing, though. I thought that they were psyching us out. Yeah. So I'm sitting there, and it's like the hardest active time maneuver I've ever been doing. And then suddenly, it's like, "You will be stuck here forever. There's no hope," or whatever, you know. And then my bar just plummets, and I was like, oh my god, they are changing everything we know about it.
It's right. And I had that the first time I did too. I'm like, because what happened is, right, we talked about one person can fail it, right? And so we wiped. I'm like, oh, maybe we need to fail it, right? Was my thought. And then it's like, no, it's just, you just really need to go ham on your keyboard.
So when I went, when I went, like I said, the first time through, I was slamming the fuck out of my keyboard, and I don't know if it turned off or what, but it went, "Oh, you're doing pretty good. Just kidding. Goodbye. You're dead." So I don't know if it was just me that failed the first time. Probably not, because the next 2 times we also failed. And I was with somebody who has carpal tunnel, and they're like, "Guys, like, please, this is physically hurting me. Please try next time. I can't do this again."
So I wouldn't be surprised if they adjust this, because it's like, I get it, right? It's like, oh, it's this big epic battle, you really gotta hit those buttons, but like, it's a little much. It's a little much, even for like players that don't have disabilities.
What were you saying, Charles?
Dissenting opinion. It looks harder. It's not actually harder. The bar goes down faster. I don't want to.
Okay.
Or not.
So it just makes you more scared.
You can press one button at 200 BPM. Someone proved this, and you'd be fine. It just scares you, and then you start pressing buttons like enter, and then you die. So don't freak out. Do not freak out.
Interesting.
I mean, it's easy for me to say because I have an MMO mouse, so I just pressed all the buttons on the MMO mouse, and it's never a problem.
So with that knowledge, then, do you still think that they should make an adjustment to it?
Maybe, because it does freak people out, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know that this is true. This is just one anecdotal I saw.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, to be fair, once my keyboard didn't die, I could slam like 2 buttons back and forth, and I pretty much stayed at the top. But because I was so frightened, I was definitely freaking out.
Right.
I was like, I had my keyboard and my mouse going. I was like, ah.
I am wondering if the reason that they did that is because the idea is like, if you don't struggle to break out, you die. Because usually if you fail the active time maneuver, you'll die, right? But then for the next cutscene, again, not saying anything, I guess everybody kind of needs to be alive for what happened. Like, but at the same time, I personally think I do have a problem with having a completely inconsequential and not at all test of actual skill kind of thing in the middle of a fight that can then wipe an entire group.
I agree that it should wipe a group. That's
like,
just, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Little bit.
It's one of those things, right? With Stormblood, we got those, and we got like the job UI stuff, and it's like they want to try and break a little bit out of that typical MMO mold, and this was what they kind of decided on for that.
That said, it doesn't
Stormblood
take
still
that long to get back to the active time event.
Stormblood is always interesting because they're like, all right, so we're gonna redo actions and stuff, so there's fewer buttons. But then we're gonna add this thing called a duty action, which adds a button to only some. It's like, what are you doing? Like,
But I had a friend who worked on it for 30 minutes with a completely pug group, and then I went in with 6 people actually. Then I knew I was the 6th, and 2 people who I didn't know.
Yeah, it seems like
I did.
It took 3 tries.
1 run, 2 attempts for me, and then when my wife went through, we ran that timer hard and actually had to get reps, and it was rough.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of looking back, like for you, if you had to say if this was one of the harder like kind of story based bosses, is this up there? Was like Shinryu harder?
no, Shinryu is harder.
Yeah,
Shinryu is
think so?
definitely harder. I think Shinryu, but granted, I didn't do Final Steps of Faith when it was first released, so I'm not totally sure.
Oh god.
But like,
Steps.
but
Oh,
for
man.
me, Shinryu has been one of the hardest ones that I experienced personally when it was first released, and I loved it. I was so into that fight. But there are a bunch of mechanics in that even when you go to the extreme version of the fight, are not that far off. Like, the extreme version of the fight obviously has its own additional challenges, but a lot of the stuff that they kind of make you watch for or like anticipate in Shinryu, like there's a lot of mechanics you have to run new groups through, right? Whereas with this one, I did feel like, I think it took us 3 tries. One was because I typed how to into the chat box. But a few of the other ones were just because like maybe a mechanic or 2 caught us off guard, right? And we were like, oh, oops, half of us died. But I think it just took us a couple times and then we got through and it was okay. But I do know that I've heard other people saying that it's taken them ages to try and get through this thing.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like it was one of the harder ones if you kind of just like realized, oh, hey, okay, this thing happened. Now I just adjust.
Definitely not. Like the leading up to the active time and everything after was fairly reasonable, I thought. Just people freaking out over having to press some buttons that don't have anything to do with the game.
Right, and I'm curious too. That difficulty. Because with the game, and like mechanics for bosses especially, right? We'll get some new stuff in like a raid, a savage raid or something. But then like in the next expansion, they'll take a mechanic out and just throw it on a dungeon boss, right? So we see these things, and I'm really curious if maybe that difficulty between like Shinryu and this trial now, I wonder if that's because we've just been exposed to more things throughout the whole game.
There's definitely
because Shinryu had some new stuff. I think that was just Shinryu.
There's a group of players who have seen it all. We're very old. We've seen it all. So this new trial was like, oh, seen that.
Yeah.
I think there even is a mechanic from Shinryu in this one.
I'm pretty sure.
There is, and there are several that were drawn from raids. And I think I did say when I was like playing through it myself, because there's also some that are Neo X Death. There's some. So I was like, oh, because I've done these, I understand the language of it. But I think probably the discrepancy we're seeing with groups being able to clear it are parties who may have never done the Savage or the past 8-man raids, and who just don't fundamentally know those mechanics.
And it's funny because so I went through. It took me 2 attempts in one instance for this fight. It wasn't until we were probably halfway through doing it for my wife where somebody brought up those mechanics for like the XX mechanics, and I was like, oh, like I just completely didn't realize that it was a thing that was going on.
See, when I did it, it took us. I was completely pug, I believe. I may have brought my girlfriend because she saw that I was at the point. She did it before me, so. And so I went in there, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, it'll be a trial, that's fine. You know, I'm a summoner, right?
Yes, I didn't know that about you.
You know what summoners have?
Go on.
So 15 raid attempts. 15 in our 3rd attempt, and we did win, but we replaced the healer in the middle of it, because when I was playing it, the off tank wanted to be the main tank, maybe would pull immediately as soon as we got back. So like everybody would get back to life, and they would just run in and do it. I don't know why. Right, because it was just the way. But that last time, like the healer popped up like during one of the first mechanics, and I was like, oh, that's got to be weird. but we made it through. It was 15 raises
I-
later.
Yeah,
That-
and Cinnamon says that they had similar experiences. I had this too in that second group where there were definitely my guess, right, is that it's people that haven't played in a while. The patch is up, they come back and they forget basic
Right.
mechanics, right, like the stack mechanic, right? I mean that's how these patches. I mean that's how it goes.
And that's not. I'm not super complaining about it. Like, we got through it.
Yeah.
I am complaining about that tank that immediately pulled. I don't like you, whoever you are. Just
Wow,
That's
calling
the
them
least
out.
yeah, that's the least strong.
Who does that though?
Strongly worded, way I could do it. But yeah, I mean, the mechanics weren't that bad. But yeah, there are people who are, getting back into it. But yeah, if you are a summoner or a red mage, not that you didn't already know, get your raise ready. Be ready.
Yeah.
How about Extreme?
And
Ooh.
I haven't tried Extreme yet.
I haven't done it. I've only heard about it. Have you done it, Zen?
Yeah. We
tried it
didn't.
one night.
Yeah, we didn't beat it. We went in blind for about an hour the other night, but it's actually, I feel like it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
That's what
Mm.
I've heard.
There are a couple mechanics we had to look up, like the meteor in the beginning. You basically have to split into pairs and go off to each corner, because people are like, it's a lot of the fight is standing at clock positions right around the boss. So we're all standing at clock positions around the boss with these meteors and murdering each other. Okay, what is this? You have to take four DPS or 4 tank healer combination, get the meteors, and you have to go to the corners so that they don't overlap and kill everybody.
Yeah, it
I
was
see.
a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it really isn't that bad. It's the same mechanics, a couple new ones and a couple fun new ones.
It reminded me a lot of
Yeah.
Midgard Stormer.
Yeah.
Savage.
Mm. But yeah,
I'm hoping I
it's
can
fun.
convince my raid group to jump into that.
Yeah, it's not too
hard.
bad.
It's hard.
It's hard. It's not too bad.
I mean, hopefully it doesn't have the weird lag with Hot Tail, but
Yeah.
Yeah, we just started into 7 last week, so I'm like, they're probably all like, yeah, let's keep going. I'm like, but new
But what I'm
content.
saying is hard is getting a raid group to do it because the weapons are
Yeah.
useless.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
There's
That's
Yeah,
There's no point to it if you've already beaten this tier, except for having done it, which
Yeah.
is the reason we want to do it, just to
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
beat that one too, hooray!
And I mean,
Yeah.
there's-
and like I
They're
said,
kind
we
of a
just
fun fight.
started 7, so we have a ways to go yet.
So this could be helpful for you.
actually
right,
Right.
yeah.
there's barding and stuff that comes from it too, as always. So like
Mhm.
Yeah.
having that stuff is cool.
Furniture.
Furniture. But yeah, I've heard that people were saying that it felt maybe a little bit easier than they thought, or like you were saying, a little more straightforward than
Yeah.
maybe they
Mhm.
anticipated. So interesting.
But you get to
interesting.
listen to that music the whole time. Worth it.
See, that's always my thing. Like when I was in there, people are like, oh, we wiped, we're terrible. I'm like, hey, look at it this way. You get to listen to this music longer now.
It's true. Wait, are there? Okay, so remind me, because I am sometimes absent-minded on this. Is it weapons from this one?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, glam's a thing.
Yeah.
So I
true.
mean,
Yeah.
like, even if you already
Yeah.
have that, eye level, you can easily, get a new glam piece, which is cool.
Or work on your secondary or tertiary jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a neat fight. If you like that sort of content, you'll absolutely love doing this fight.
I
True.
I am waiting for the patch like EP to drop,
Oh yeah.
so I can just loop that song just for my entire day. Like, it's so good. I want the lyrics, Koji, Soken, official forum moderator people, community people. I want these lyrics so bad.
Bring
Help me out. Post the
Staring
lyrics
directly
on the
into the
blog.
soul.
Or give me them.
So I guess
So
that's really
I-
all there is to say about Extreme.
Yeah.
How about robots?
Oh,
my
Robots
God.
was so anime. I loved it. It was ridiculous.
I haven't
Robots.
had a chance yet.
I just
There was some disappointment with the actual fight.
Oh, wait.
Um,
Okay, for a second, I was like, wait, are we talking about robots or robots?
Right.
We're talking
Oh, that's
about,
right.
We're talking about
Obviously, we're
Gundam.
talking about robots.
We're talking about Gundam.
Sorrow of Werlyt. Let's just actually name
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gundam.
was-
You're right.
Really fun. Which
I'm
was
so
really fun.
excited. I haven't played it yet because work has been literally murdering me, and it was all I could do to get through the MSQ.
Yes.
So I'm like, my girlfriend's done it, and I'm a huge Gundam fan. A huge Gundam fan. And she's like, oh, it's made for you. And I'm like,
It's
"Don't tell me."
even better. It's even better than that. They give you like just full on anime. Like
Just
they're like, all right, how should this mech attack? Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Like I'm you can like Kamehameha the sapphire weapon if you want. Like it's ridiculous. It's so good.
I loved it, and it does feel like I was surprised because I wasn't exactly sure what they were going to be doing with this. But and I'm curious to hear what everybody else has to say if you've done it. I feel like this particular installment for sure solidified for me that this is foreshadowing about our next expansion, I mean, because we go to a place that was much more fully realized than I ever anticipated. One,
right? What the crap?
And like all of the new
I was
assets
so
for that
hype about
really
that. Oh
made
my
me
God.
go like, there's no way they have built this for this one side thing.
I
Like,
hope not. That place is beautiful.
it's super cool, and the music there is really beautiful, and
Oh,
like
I love that track.
it really seems like whether or not this like our mecha or whatever ends up actually being something, I do feel like because they took the time to put us through a very rigorous tutorial and stuff, it feels like this will be a
That's
system
where it's
we
gonna go in the
use
future.
like other
That's one of the
battles or in
areas-
solo duties or things like that.
But that's one of the areas under our current map cloud, right?
Yes.
So that is
it's
probably
right on the
one of the
edge,
areas
yeah.
we'll get for the next expansion.
And I was
Yeah.
super excited because I need to double check for sure, but like as we panned into it, I'm almost positive it's Kalusia. Because you have the cliff face and the lift.
So I would have to check the actual texture of the ridge, but like going into it, I was like, oh, look, it's retextured Kalusia.
Right.
No, but I was
like,
excited.
whatever. Yeah.
I got excited because I was like, we have seen on, the first what places we know are like. But I was actually kind of delighted to see in reverse some of the things that we had seen on the first that on the source might still be intact.
Even if geographically it was completely not even close to where.
Yeah, and like I said, I need to double check and I need to see for sure. But like that was my initial. I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's the cliff. And then it was extra fun to go see the buildings and things. And I do really feel like yes, like maybe this is something that's going to be setting up for our next expansion. And can I just say, oh, I don't know if this kind of counts as a spoiler. Milk?
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you think it counts as a spoiler? I have
No,
never
that's big
been
enough.
so distressed by milk in my entire by body sweat and milk.
I didn't like it. I'm on no.
Sometimes they're just consumed with what they can do, not what they should do.
Look,
sometimes
if
science
you were
works
hype
bad.
over pouring water, just wait until you get to sweat and milk.
What has science wrought?
Okay, I do have one
Yeah.
thing. I can't be specific.
Sure.
I will be specific next week.
Oh yes.
But do you guys remember that thing that I disliked about this particular content?
You mentioned this to me.
Might have been
the
something to
ruby
do
weapon feat.
with hair color.
Okay, yeah.
Something
the,
to do with
the color.
matchy hair color.
Okay.
I may have to take back my issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Can neither confirm nor deny. Next week.
Yeah. Again, right? These are always the hard episodes because it's like there's so many things we want to talk about, but it's like we've already hovered a little too close.
I know, but
it's
it was
so much good
surprising.
stuff.
I'll say that much.
Yes,
I had a
yeah.
lot of fun with it. It felt like something that promised more. I also, this is the only other thing I'm going to say about it. Dusk White lore exists now,
Yeah.
Wow.
which I was also really surprised by.
I was surprised they actually did sprinkle in a little Race Clan lore.
Yeah.
From different clans.
Yeah.
Like that was cool. They just kind of like randomly threw stuff in. Like that was awesome.
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting stuff in that, and I do think that this time around, at least from my impressions, that they are using it, using these optional sort of trials as a way to almost like double down on additional story time that they can have to set up stuff for the next expansion. And I think we're meeting a lot of players that are going to be really key in the next struggle. So I thought that was really fun for me, and I was really delighted to have that. So
Yeah, I can't wait.
I can't wait to talk a little bit more about this in more detail because I thought it did a lot of really great stuff, but then also didn't do some things great. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that next week.
Yeah.
Near raid.
Other robots.
Other robots. For me, it's that wonderful feeling of a day one patch 24-man raid, where nobody knows what's going on. Everything is just a shit show left and right. You wipe 3 times in the first minute of the first boss, and ooh boy, and this combines with what I was saying about the trial, and I think I was actually misremembering the things about stack markers. No, this happened in the 24-man raid, where we had on the first boss, the other party's tank was just hanging out with us, stacked on the other stack, and I don't know how we actually cleared that first fight. It was one of those like, we'll just keep raising people for the next 20 minutes and maybe we'll get it done.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Some people get really stressed about 24 mans, which I have discovered recently, which was kind of surprising to me.
Oh, yes.
No, I mean, like, I say that in like a way that I totally can think back and see how they would be overwhelming. But I think that there are moments in games where we have to like remember a lot of times that there is so much fun to be had when nobody knows what's happening.
Exactly.
And you get frustrated because a lot of times in like runs or clears or farms or things like that, you're just like, I just want to get through this as fast as humanly possible. And if we wipe, it is the end of existence as we know it. And I'm like, bring it. I want to wipe 50 times. I want to have no idea what's happening. I want this weird robot to talk to me and mock me for my death. I want, like, it's so fun because we all get to be new at something. And when there are so many players, it's chaos. And I think if you're going into it and you're somebody who, you know, you get stressed by it, you can look at mechanics ahead of time. I mean, Zen was working on a great guide for it with Gamer Escape.
It's done. It's ready. Go look.
Yeah.
But you just kind of have to embrace it. It's so fun. And I personally loved this one.
Yes.
It has one of my favorite ad phases that has ever existed in Final Fantasy XIV.
The second one? The second one?
Yes. Yes.
So good!
The bosses were so cool. The visuals, the music. The final song didn't hit me quite as hard as the final song of the first one, but it's still super good and is a total it's so good. And I just felt like it was really closer to that collaboration I wanted to see, where we were seeing the influence of Nier and Yoko Taro in a 24-man raid.
Exactly.
And because of that, you get some wild, wacky stuff, but it's so good.
So the mechanics in this one made more sense than the previous one.
Yeah.
Just hands down. Having gone with a fine-tooth comb through these mechanics.
I was gonna say you've played the raid then.
Yes, so I can tell you that there were some things in the previous one that just seemed very random, and the mechanics in this one overall I think make a lot more sense. I went in with a full party of all friends. All 8 of us were in Discord, could talk. First thing in the morning, as soon as not as soon as it was up, because it came up early. It actually came up at almost an hour early, and I had my alarm set for an hour after that.
Right.
But anyway, I will say that having that 8-man pre-built group probably helped us get through that very first run more easily.
Right.
In the second boss, there you fight 3 different things. And if you kill one of them more quickly than the other ones, you can go and help with the other group's stuff. My group, because we could talk to each other and we're more organized than the other pug groups, killed ours at like 50% of the other groups. So
my party did that in our run too, and it was just I just pugged it. It's like, we can help now. And you look over and we're like, whoa.
Yes, I did find I did one run with without completely pre-built groups, I think, right? Yeah, I think that's correct. Either way, and in that one, my group still finished before the other one, so you can go help them. But in that very first morning run, it was like, oh wow, I hope that these don't need to be killed at the same time, because
could you imagine?
We're about to kill this.
That was fun. I think that although we have seen the like 3 bosses in an arena thing before, right? That
You've
like
never
the boss.
you've never been constricted to the one.
Yes.
Right?
So like you're constricted to the one, and then there's also some mechanics that I actually really appreciated, even if they obliterate you so much.
Right.
That like, you know, you have to negotiate to not cleave the other groups, which is great.
Yeah.
And then the like 3 just mega YOLO dashes with when they like go down the arena. Like that's super fun and totally chaotic. Like I thought it was a cool way to take something that we know from like 24 mans. We know like oftentimes they'll have these 3, you know, groups. You have to fight those groups, right? But then create some mechanics that do really get you like moving and kind of make you think a little bit, and then also kind of look forward to the future, so that like putting some of that stuff in won't just make it so that those 3 just all get clumped together and burned down with AoE.
There
like,
was a lot of previous mechanics in that, like when you start, because there's the 3 different ones. It pulls that tether out of the Labyrinth of the Ancients boss, where it's like only one party can attack the boss at a time, and it tethers you to let you know, and so it tethers all the groups to their like, you know, their thing, which is awesome. And then it has the dashes with like the what was that, Rabanaster with Hashmal, I think it was, with like the fiery arm side. It's like, don't stand on that
call
side,
that what?
but it's like
The Beat Saber part, because it's just it's kind of like Beat Saber.
Yeah.
You just
there you go.
just do it the opposite, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then the first boss, if you haven't gone or you haven't realized yet, you can fall off of that platform.
yes, I got yeeted off the platform within the first mechanic.
If there is a platform in this game involved in a fight and it does not have a railing, there's
gonna
probably
fall
like a
off.
99% chance you can
I
fall
have not
off of it.
seen somebody not fall off just walking to their party's platform yet. It's
The
down
first
to
week
one
that
person
always
now.
happens. Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to bring up was, yes, that first run that I did in the morning, people didn't know what was going on. The third boss actually did take the group 3 tries, and so everybody was learning. But by the, I think, 4th run that I did, people knew what was going on.
Yeah.
It definitely lent itself to being understood much more easily than the previous one.
Yeah, I will
I
tell
thought.
you my story of doing it. It was like on our raid night afterwards, so it was Wednesday, and I had to unlock it because I don't really know much about Nier, and I don't like 24 man that much. I know that's kind of, you know, but you know, I'm like, okay, let's do it. Like, I don't mind unlocking it. Let's do it as a group. So it was the static, so Zen was there, and they know how it goes. And so Zen was just like, hey, this mechanic does this. And I'm like, cool, got it. And that was so much fun. It was just like, hey, heads up, you got to stand between these 2 things that say this on the thing. And I'm like, oh, that's new. Okay, found it. Like, that was a lot of fun.
I tried to be like
went in-
one step ahead, being like, the next mechanic requires you to blah, blah, blah.
I went in totally blind. Died a bunch, which was super great. Actually, I did love it, because I like seeing those mechanics that are new and different and strange, and kind of trying to piece them together was really enjoyable. And the like locations were so well realized. I love that, like, when you go in for the lore bits as well too, there's like a little bonus thing. If you've played Nier, you're gonna be really excited about it because you could go in.
We had that with the first raid too. We had the little bonus thing, and they actually bring it back and include it into the quest to unlock the new raid, which was pretty funny. I love the dialogue that you like, your player dialogue.
It's so good. I enjoyed that. And I thought some of the quest in this one, like, the quest has been the weakest part of these raids for me, but I did feel like I got a little more of a sense with some of the themes and stuff in there, a little bit more of that direction that I think Yoko Taro is trying to bring into it. And the final boss, body horror warning for anybody, but I just want to say that it's so near. Like, I don't want to say anything else. It is literally almost taken from a part of Nier Automata. It's different, but it is almost the same. And as I was sitting there, I was like, oh my god, is it going to? And then it's going to, and then something's gonna. And like every single time it was that thing. And I was like, I love this, because there is something so distinctive about the way that like Yoko Taro or like the team that's like supports a lot of his visions plays with these weird creepy but interesting, but like these layered themes and like the organic versus the synthetic, and like there's all this stuff that just exists. That it was really fun watching people witness it, because it made me remember when I first saw it in Nier, and I was like, what is happening? And
I had a lot of that too.
Yeah.
It is fun to go in with people who know kind of what the heck's going on, because I haven't played Nier, but I have a couple of friends who have, and they'll make little extra comments like, oh, I looked under the... This isn't really a spoiler for the 14 version. I looked under the last boss's platform, and there weren't any aliens down there. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but that sounds really cool.
Yeah, I don't know why you're like that.
Yeah, I didn't know this because I haven't played Drakengard, but the first boss, one of its mechanics is actually the final mechanic of a final boss in Drakengard. So that was cool too.
Cool.
Yeah.
The more you
Hearing
know.
everybody else's excited exclamations has been
Right.
really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last boss, when you get that little, just the unveiling, there's all the people in the chat that, you know, some that do know what's going on, some that don't know. It's just like, oh God, oh no, oh
I think
like
everybody
it's great.
has some sort of feeling about that last boss combination.
Yeah.
And most of them are, one of my friends, possibly the same friend, I think went and did it by himself, and he's just typing in our raid link shell like, Yogo Taro continuing his game in another game, what's going on? And I'm just like, you're really excited. I'm glad you're so excited about this.
They're good. I also just want to take a second to say that if you love the jam, I think it's the first boss, but I think they reiterate it even in the last one. That song is called Grandma Destruction.
Yeah, grandma.
Yeah?
And that's just very important for everybody to know, because if you're startled at all by what happens on the last boss, and you don't realize that some of the music from the Nier game is actually titled Grandma Destruction for no reason that has nothing to do with anything in the game, I might add.
Everyone's like, but why are we destroying our grandma? Why is our grandma a robot? I have
Yeah.
questions.
I just like,
What?
the thing is that I think we've seen in so many ways how collaboration can open up possibilities within a game, and especially a game that has a really strong sense of style. And it is fun to me to see something that's so avant-garde in its storytelling and the themes and the things that it does merge with 14, a game that is otherwise very reliable and very
Yeah.
much methodical about the way that they build and communicate their world and their lore. And I really am excited because, especially with things like that ad phase coming out of this,
Yeah.
I think we got to see some of the possibilities that even just having these creative teams brush against each other, even just work together on something, can bring to how, Yoshida-san and our other developers and everybody else realize a lot of things for the game in the future. So it's cool. It was exciting. I had fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So after the raid, we had Dwarf Dailies for New Beast Tribe Quest. Have you
love
guys touched on that yet? No.
I love them. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're pretty great.
I like to do them first thing, because if you do them first thing in the morning, you then hit the reset and you can do them again that same day. It puts you like ahead.
Oh, that's what I forgot to do. I felt like there was something that I needed to do because of the reset stuff,
yeah.
and that was it. And I didn't.
For
Oh, well.
me, it's just about completion and seeing what the story's about, because all my crafters are already 80, which
Yeah.
bumps me out a little bit. But what can you do? I'm sure it's helpful to a bunch of people, so that's good. But I just love the dwarves as a tribe overall, because they're wacky and violent and like to drink, and I think it's hilarious.
Right.
Once you get past this isn't really a spoiler, but once you get past the second day into like your second tier of what's it called, renown or whatever,
Reputation or
reputation.
Yeah.
You help them build up a brewery and bar. I think that's hilarious. And then there is actually a mini game that you can miss out, because if you're just clicking through like, okay, I finished the quest, whatever, it tells you there's a mini game. You can go help out the bartender. You help out the bartender, and you can pick what customer you want to help. And then if you pick, I want to tell people that part.
Right.
They can figure that out. But depending on who you pick,
It's a thing.
depending on who you pick, they come up and they're like, hey, how you doing? I'm in the mood for blah drink. And you have to guess based on your mixing materials what kind of drink they would like.
Oh,
and
no.
you either do well or you don't. and go on from there. But I just thought that was a cute little random extra thing that they
Right?
added.
Yeah. Huh.
That's super cute, and it does make me wonder if maybe simultaneously they may or may not be developing some kind of like,
Yeah.
things that you could do where like there would be a bar furnishing item or something where if you put that item in a bar in your house, you can then play this mini game with like a customer and give them a drink, or like that would be so fun and would really
They're looking at
absolutely
like
a thing
for-
that they
for-
would do. They
They
all
have
the
all
time
the-
they're like,
yeah.
this thing looks strange and weird and not necessarily important, and oh look, we used it to build this later. That's a thing that they do.
They're trying to decide their next little random like mini game for your toy box and your houses, and they're like, Tapper.
Tapper. Yeah. Why
It's
not?
cute.
I'd play
really
like a
cute.
dwarf tapper, like a root beer tapper. Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
it. Why not? Why not?
Good time.
Yeah. So those are cool. I'm looking forward to that now. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. Cute.
Delivery NPCs. Has anybody gotten to those yet? I actually realized I hadn't done the quest that unlocked after the firmament completion from the last patch, because I got in there and I was like, why is it? Oh, I was like, oh my god, I forgot all about those. That those were even a thing. So
No, I haven't done it. All I know is it's the little dragon. He's cute.
And apparently there is a mount that's like a dragonette, but it's big. And people are wondering if it comes from those custom deliveries, which would make more sense than it coming from anywhere else, literally.
Yeah.
A little
So,
bit.
Well, I could see
alone
that
made me
being.
go- I was gonna say, that alone made me go, I might do deliveries for the first time in my entire existence.
I think it would make more sense for that to be restoration mount.
I mean, it would.
Because
but-
this delivery NPC is so intertwined with the restoration stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
he's in the firmament, so
And they do
That
But at the
wouldn't
same
surprise
time,
mount, so
yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like, you helped me out. Now I'll travel you around Eorzea. So it could be. It could be.
I mean, we haven't gotten any rewards like that from those before, though. I think the rewards for the delivery NPC, it's just the XP. Like, it's just another way to try and
No,
quickly
there's-
level
Give
up
us
your
a dragon.
crafters.
I could
There's
see it from HR.
something- I don't.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember what it is, but somebody told me the other day when you do like 100 turn-ins or some large amount to Kaishir, you get something. It might just be a title though.
Yeah, could be.
Unsure.
Hmm.
Can't remember.
Look at that.
Anywho, since none of us have
Interesting.
done that,
Anywho, oh, you get access to Yulmore from the Crystarium. It's the airship. You get access to the airship.
Oh,
That's what it was. So there you go.
okay.
Let's see. Moving down a little bit. Unreal Trials. Brooke, you said you had done Shiva. How was it?
I would say it's really on par with, how it was at release, and or if before this patch hit, you did it minimum eye level. It's basically the same fight.
It's exactly the same.
And that's, it was fun. We went in, we did it in one lockout. Probably the hardest part of it is just if you have people who don't know those original mechanics. The DPS check is pretty tight. So if people go down repeatedly, it's not like you may not wipe, but you might hit the stacks, like it's 12 or something that causes the enrage at the end because she does have a hard enrage. But otherwise we got through it, and the mechanics are pretty repetitive by nature, but if you know like the weapons themselves and the phases, you're probably going to be okay. Some people I think will struggle with it more if they never did it. That's going to be the main thing.
Sure.
But because I went in with my static and we had done it previously and we'd even done it minimum eye level previously, it was pretty quick. But the little game itself is pretty fun. And you can flip the cards and, you look for the pictures. It's basically like Battleship, and different pictures will give you more leaves. I was surprised, though, because a lot of the prizes, first off, there's not very many of them. There's very few right now. You have the King Sith bow, and then there's like a minion, the mount, that glowing unicorn does come from it.
Okay.
And all of those are 800 something, I want to say, but I'm not sure.
yeah. It's like it was between 400 and 800 somewhere. I don't remember.
Yeah.
One of them was like on the lower end. And the mount, of course, is on the higher end, but I don't know how high.
And the max amount of leaves that you can get each week, if you're super lucky
Yeah.
and you get the the one tile that you flip, is 100.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you drop down to I think it's 20 at the next tier for like the
Mm.
four square image. So it will take you a hot second to get that mountain stuff.
You can get
I
more than 100.
Can you?
Yeah,
About
I got really lucky. I got the fox face tile and a reset on my very first one.
Yep.
So I got to go back in and do it a second time,
Oh,
and then I got 20
okay.
from the chest thing. So I guess it's 125.
I had actually seen a video online. Somebody had gotten like all the images and the fox tile or something.
Holy cow!
So like that's it. That's you
Yeah,
won life.
Yeah.
So I do want to say that. Do note that you only get one retelling a week. Do
Yes.
not uncover the swords a second time. Don't do it.
It's a waste.
You will not get another
Well,
one.
if
Get
you-
like 5 points or something.
Yeah, so if you find one thing of the swords, save 5 flip overs and start looking for the other stuff. But if you hit 5, go ahead and turn it over because you still get the points. You just don't get another reset.
Yeah. It's
Gotcha.
just
So
fun.
if in your other searching you find
Gotcha.
nothing, you might as well get the 5 points.
Yeah.
There you go. So okay, I didn't actually realize that's a good way then to get a little bit more bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have a group that knows it, it's not hard to
Yeah.
get through each week. I don't think.
When we went in, it was really satisfying. We one shot Shiva.
yeah.
I think the majority of us did Shiva, the original Shiva on release, so a lot of us already knew the mechanics. And because we've been doing Blue Mage, we had to go get the ability for somebody.
Mm.
I think actually for
Yeah.
Charles.
Yeah.
We needed her ice bow thing, so it was a little cheaty. We'd recently done Shiva and got a little reminder of what the mechanics were, but we went in and it was like one shot, and we're like, oh, well that's okay, cool, yeah.
Yeah.
We could do this once a week. That's not difficult.
So
Sure.
I haven't done it yet. So obviously it's Shiva brought up to level 80. Is it the hard
really?
mode or the extreme mode?
Extreme. It's extreme.
Extreme. Okay.
And
okay.
the one thing that we did notice that was different. Everything else is the same as release, except now we have arm's length and the what's the caster one?
Sure,
Huh?
cast.
Sure cast. And they do work on the knockback that she does. That knocks you across the
You just have to
arena.
be
Sure.
quick.
Yeah. Cool.
But that's it. That is the only real difference between the original one that I noticed. There could be others I just didn't remember, but
Yeah.
I mean, the fox is amazing, and I do
Yeah.
love him.
his face is so just he don't care.
His face is so good, and I do
Deadpan.
very badly want the minion of him. But I'm kind of imagining right now that probably when they release each of the next subsequent fights, they'll probably add rewards to his
I would
little
guess so.
vendor thing, and just from kind of the amount of leaves that they cost, my guess is that the previous rewards will stay in there, but I don't really know.
They better, man. Like if they rotate them out, that's
Yeah.
gross. Like no, thank you.
Now, I
get that.
do see that Terrell has a question in the chat that I think is worth bringing up. Do you guys think this is worth the resources that they put towards it?
I don't even know what resources they would have. Like, I mean, the game part, yeah, but that's it's like a tile puzzle. It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's so the actually installing the system for it is one thing, but going through and then retooling the battle for each patch, right? Because each major patch, right, will get a new Unreal trial and then they'll swap
Yeah.
them out. My
know.
gut reaction is I hate that with every fiber of my being.
Right?
Yeah,
Having done it,
I
I
just-
don't know. Like I don't know what they have to do to retool it, but
Yeah.
having done it,
Sure.
it's
Numbers.
so similar. It's the same.
I think it was just
Right.
a numbers tweak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to say that they were just like, well, people's health at the time was here, and Shiva had this much damage to everything.
I think they're
People's
learning
health
how
now
to
is
just
here.
scale
Now
it,
Shiva's
probably.
yeah.
For
Yeah, I
me,
mean-
the idea of it being like FOMO content, that bugs the hell out of
Right,
me.
okay.
As somebody that
Oh, okay.
really wants to love Destiny 2, the idea of FOMO content coming into 14, I'm just like, no, like get that out of here. Like I don't want it.
I mean,
don't want it at all.
It's not that different than Wondrous Tales when it gets right down to it. Did Wondrous Tales bother you?
No, he's talking about if it's swapped and then you couldn't get these rewards.
Yeah, no, because
okay.
we have
Got
we
it.
have Shiva for 5.3. In 5.4, we'll have like Titan or something, and Shiva will be gone. So
Got
to spend whatever resources, right? We don't know how much effort they have to put into this, But to bring that in and then get rid of it, that seems odd, especially
I don't
in an
feel like they'll do
expansion.
that.
Yeah.
Especially because you
they
can
said
also
they
get
are.
those prizes. Changing
They
the
said
prizes?
that's how they're doing it. They're swapping the fights out.
No, I
That's-
mean the prizes. I'm talking about the
oh,
prizes.
the
now.
prizes.
Yeah, I don't think they'll change the prizes out, especially since you can also get them from Wondrous Tales.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. I mean, because this is something
This,
that we
all
haven't
the all
really
like
had.
the horse and the ribbon and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get the
Yeah.
horse from a jackpot. Yeah.
That was a face
Okay.
you made.
Yeah.
We'll
I
see.
didn't know that either.
We'll see. The way that they've handled Mogtome stuff between patches makes me think potentially otherwise, but we'll have to wait. I think
But-
until
You can take those previous Mogtomes and still use them on
for
the old stuff.
garbage.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but everything that you could get previously with those Mogtomes, you could still get with the old Mogtomes.
Could they? I thought they just swapped them out and just had only like fireworks or something available.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I do not.
I have to
know
double
that.
check because I'll.
Yeah,
I haven't
not-
I haven't actually spent time actually doing those Mogtome things. I just
I'm
Meh.
pretty sure I bought at least like a song with old Mogtomes once, so
okay.
that's all I can confirm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, and
yeah, we'll-
and chat
I'd
too
say-
saying Final Cloud, Wondrous Tales give XP now too, right?
yeah.
So they're good for doing that because you know back in Heaven's Word when Wondrous Tales first came out, like it was a cool thing. I would make an effort to try and do it every week, and you know right before Stormblood it just got I haven't like touched it since, you know. So it's a way to try and revitalize that content, which is
I
good.
just hope that in making this, they have solidified the system to do this to other fights, to other
Yes.
dungeons. Then
Yes.
it wouldn't be a waste.
Because
Why
we know
can't they
once
leverage
you know
this?
when they have trouble, like we've been wanting scaled content forever,
Yes.
right? It's like Eggy Glamours. It took them so long to get that system for new animations in, and once they figured that out, we've been getting new Eggy Glamours every patch.
You know, you didn't have to hurt me like that. This was a good episode.
Yeah, it's tough because the question of like, I mean, this was obviously something that they didn't have to expend a lot of resources on, as far as we can tell,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think the one thing that's kind of weird about it is that, and I think that confused a lot of players, is that it was kind of billed as like, this is one of the big new lineups of
Right.
our next thing that's coming out. And it's really not a thing. Like, it's really not a thing
Yeah.
on its own. I mean, it's fun, and it is, you know, like if you never got to do those fights, I do think that people will have a little bit that they can dig into there. But as far as it being something that is like a featured release of a patch, I don't really know, if having experienced it myself now, if I personally would say that like this thing is something that I will be looking forward to in a patch. Like, it's something I will probably do sometimes and that I might get special rewards from. But again, it's not necessarily something that I want to see like replace a slot for content in a patch, if that makes
Right.
sense.
I don't
And-
think it
yeah.
will. I think the way that the design of this, at least it happens to be for this patch, since this is a 24-man raid patch, this feels like a, hey, raid groups, this is something you can log in once a week for and, you know, sub for and come back to. And all right, but I think another reason that Square might get some flack for Unreal content, and this is again right with in regards to resources and stuff, you're absolutely going to have people that are saying, okay, so instead of 2 dungeons, we get 1 dungeon and then this fight thing. Like, that's why would you do that? Which realistically, right, is probably not the case, right, in terms of workload and stuff like that. But there definitely is that idea of they're adding a lot of other stuff, right, with Shadowbringers. They're trying new things. We talked a little bit about this last week, but then we're also not getting that second dungeon, which means, you know, you're stuck with these 2 dungeons for a while.
Yeah.
I honestly,
and so I think-
I kind of like this because rather
Okay.
than it being a luck thing, like with Wondrous Tales, it's I mean, there's still luck, but
It's
it's
a little
not
more
like,
strategy based.
it's less if you don't get the stickers in the right spot that you have no control over your, you know, whereas you can probably get at least something out of
Yeah.
this one every week. So it's more
Sure.
like slow and steady getting to basically the same prizes eventually. So I kind of like that. Plus, I feel like the effort put into this one is less. Gonna be quite honest.
Yeah.
Shiva was fun, and Shiva was one fight that I had to do until I got the you can do this again. So it was 2 fights that I had to do, and it was very again. I feel like straightforward is my word for this patch almost. It was you do one fight, you turn over some blocks, you get your points, and you're good. You don't have to try and reshuffle. You don't have to hope that your stickers are in the right place. It's less complicated and probably better for people who are like, I hate this completely random thing. I'm gonna go.
And
over
it's
here
a
do
little bit more aimed at the more end game crowd versus Wondrous Tales.
I'm honestly excited to see each of the primals to come because it was fun to do Shiva. It was fun to have that little walk down memory lane. But like I said, it was exactly the same. I'm excited to see the fights where they have to change something. Because there has to be at least one where the mechanics, the way it used to work, won't work now, right? That is what I am interested to see, I guess.
I don't know.
Right?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but
yeah.
I mean, I think I am excited for some of the later fights because there are some fights that I would love to do again, like for any reason at a harder difficulty. But that you can't always incentivize groups to do, I mean, like Thoradin and some of those fights that are really epic and fun and were really difficult at the time, I think will be exciting to see, like, brought back to the table. It does make me wonder, though, hearing you describe it, Zen, like, if they will do any retooling of Wondrous Tales, because you're right that, like, there's a lot of time investment that can go into that if you try to do as much as you can off of that card. And I know some people who did it as like a source of income and things, but I mean, like now there's so many other ways to get a lot of the more mundane rewards that come from Wondrous Tales. I mean, clusters and stuff like that, like, I don't really know. I think some people still probably run them regularly. And now that you can get experience from them, I guess, like, but how efficient that will be as far as leveling goes or like any other use, I'm not sure. So I'm curious to see like if at some point they end up retooling the Wondrous Tales system a little bit to kind of make it more on par with the energy reward of like Shiva or the Unreals, It'll
be interesting because I mean they did kind of polish up a little bit for this patch, so I'll be curious to see if they go further with it. But I don't know. I mean, and I think too, when you look at it, right, if Faux and Tails are sharing rewards, I think what you're looking at is for Tails you have an RNG chance, right, with XP. But then with Faux, it's you will get this, you just need to grind. And so I think that's the exchange, right? There's an RNG element, maybe you get something, maybe you don't, or here's the slightly harder guaranteed eventually path. And I think, all right, I think that works.
Yeah.
So speaking of changes.
Speaking of changes, right? So Astrologian had some adjustments, Rook. What is
yes.
How were those?
Hello, it's me, your ex-Astrologian main. I have heard some things about these. I mean, it seems overall that people are happier with it. The most major things that I know, and please, if anybody else has more thoughts on this, feel free to hop in, are that, so the biggest struggle of Astrologian and Shadowbringers really was mana. Like, White Mage has more than ever at this point to recoup mana. Even on Scholar, like, you at least have, like, Farrier splitting some resources, and, it hasn't been as punishing. There's ways you can recoup it. And then poor Astrologian was like, I need help, please, someone, I beg of you. Like, so they've been slowly patching that and changing it to make it a little bit better. But with the changes that we just got, it seems like they've taken the mana reduction out of Lightspeed, but now you have 2 other abilities that will give you mana back when you use
literally everything else costs less or will give you mana.
Yeah. So I think that has really helped cushion, and people seem to be like positive about it. But the biggest complaint that I've heard is the other change with, like, I think sleeve draw. Is that correct? Where like now pre-pulling and all sorts of like pre-pulling cards and things, it's just it's like it's becoming more and more frustrating and or impossible for everybody. And it is funny because I was talking about this the other day, like why I loved old Astrologian versus new, even just on my own time. And I think a lot of the stuff that I loved about old Astrologian has been truly eradicated at this point, which was like, you know, being able to make decisions based off of your own like information and knowledge and the cards you wanted to play, being able to constantly be doing something by pulling between pulls, you know, and like lining up what you wanted so that you could constantly turn over those cards and get the flow that you wanted. So we don't have pre-pulling now or between pulls, and also you can't make decisions because everything is damaged.
Yeah.
So like those are the main things that I think for me personally have kind of taken me away from the class. But it seems like otherwise the mana issue is pretty well addressed at this point. But
Yeah, they got hit with that. Oh, go ahead.
One of my biggest problems about the initial Astro changes was they added the like symbols, the celestial symbols. And that required a lot more looking at the cards at a certain time when maybe you needed to be healing so that you could try and get one of each of the 3 symbols. And the thing that one of the changes to sleeve draw is now it just automatically gives you one of each of the symbols. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That was a problem that I had, but now it also just gives you 1 card instead of 3, which is, like you were saying, Rook, one of the nice parts about Astro, to be able to be like, all right, I have these things and I can do these things with these things. Right now it's like, you get this. And also that mechanic that we were trying to add in to make it more interesting, you automatically get it. So why is it there at all?
yeah, like, and I just don't, it's like, why, I have so many feelings. It's like, why, if you made this class that was supposed to be a buff class, but then you removed basically all the buffs that it had, and you just let it have this 1 buff, and yes, the community values that buff, and yes, it is used in endgame content, and I completely understand that balancing it was difficult, right? But it's like, if we've switched the system so entirely, why do we even have the card symbols anymore? Like, why do you not just draw a card that just has the seal on it? And of course, you can use the Lord Lady as a bit of like a trick to, you know, tell like, oh, if it's this, it's this, if it's that, right? But like, it just feels so strange to me because it is like in this particular case, and I hate saying this, and I never try to be this person. I never try to be this person, but it is like dumbing down the class, and it's just taking the cool idea that they had and then being like, oh, that one was maybe hard, so now we make it easy.
This is an example of them doing what they keep doing with the expansions, which is knock down the skill ceiling. You know, like how much you could do if you're really good. We'll just bring that down a little bit. But they also at the same time bring down that skill floor so that it's easier to be passive.
I mean, I remember in Heaven's Word when Machinist, Astrologian, and Dark Knight were advanced classes. Like they actually call them advanced classes and some of it. Like I think it's nice that we got some of these changes for the MP, right? But I think really at this point we need to just kind of keep up a little bit of hope for 6.0, because going back to, you know, what our jobs were going to be for 5.0, right? And even with some of that chatter, like they were really thinking about it till the last seconds, like, well, you know, we're having a tank because we still haven't decided if we're going to have off tank and main tanks be specific jobs yet, but yeah, we feel better about this. Meanwhile, they're like, we need way more time to work on healers because we don't know what we're doing with healers. So maybe, just maybe, with 6.0 they'll figure it out and we'll get a little bit of that personality back for some of these jobs.
Was it you, Charles, who was telling me about, it was like a meme with bards and astros?
Well,
maybe not.
Oh, no.
It was like Astros being like, all these changes, they're so terrible. Why do they keep doing this to me? And Bard's like, what up, old news buddy? So because of that, it just brought to mind like, maybe they're just trying to put band-aids on it for now, and then when we hit 6.0 they'll give it the Bard treatment where they're like, this is a different job now.
Yeah.
All they have to do is make Mage's Ballad involve magic or mages. That's all they have to do to fix that job.
I really hope they just take Astro and go, just kidding, that last expansion, just like they did for Bard. Just kidding, it's not going to do that anymore. Here's what you had before, except better. We're really sorry. Keep going. Because I honestly really loved Astro back in Heaven's Word and in Stormblood. It was so fun.
Yes.
And I don't play it anymore. It's gone. That's not a job people play.
Give Astro the Machinist revamp.
Right.
I mean, it's tough because like Astrologian, Stormblood Astrologian is to this day one of my favorite classes I've ever played in Final Fantasy XIV. Like I really loved it, and that's again like it's not ignoring the fact that I know that they had some problems with it, but those problems come down to the fact that, as we've talked about time and time again, 14 doesn't exactly know how to handle its idea of support roles or buffs. Like, how do we deal with what we are giving that is of value to party members? And so we've seen what initially was, I think, a really cool idea for a class that uses that theme of tarot cards and like having these different cards that have this different personality that you can use for different things. Like, as it got harder and harder and harder to address the fact of like, how do we make these cards relevant? How do we make balance not overpowered? Rather than being like, how do we adjust our game and or the content in the game to make it so that a variety of buffs is useful and needed, they kind of went the route of, we will just distill the only buff that is useful and needed to be a damage buff.
Yeah.
And that is what we saw happen in Shadowbringers. And like, I think our classes at this point are in a pretty good place. Like, I honestly don't feel like it's a garbage dump or anything. Like, everything's pretty well balanced, and some, you know, some sort of simplification of systems is definitely really important coming into new expansions, and as you know, get a bigger kit and as you get more of an idea about how the community uses it. But at the same time, this is one area where I'm just like, but this has shot our utility classes in the foot so bad. Like, to the point where Bard had no utility when they, like, I was like, why do you not buff anything?
We're used to it at this point. If somebody's gonna get tortured, it's gonna be a utility class.
Like, but
speaking of Bard, so remember when they were like, we're giving you a buff, we are taking it away. They gave away the exact same buff that they took away in these job
They
changes.
don't know what they want to do.
Come on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They
I
need
could
to
tangent.
reevaluate
Good.
before the next. I think that that's what they're doing, right? Like, they've got the story covered, I think. You know, like, now we got to go back to the mechanics a little bit. And, you know, I feel you as a summoner. The reason that I play summoner, even though I complain about a lot of it, is that it has that high skill ceiling. And if I learn it more, I do more damage to an almost unlimited potential, right? Summoner has a really rangy amount of damage that I can feel from just looking at HP bars, by the by. You know, I'm just good like that. I can calculate that all in my head. But it's so wide-ranging that they keep trying to squeeze it down and squeeze it down. They're like, okay, you can't be that much better if you're good at this. Why? Why can't I be that much better if I'm good at this? Why can't the best astrologian... Yeah, like,
because then the lower tier ones get, like, you know, harassed.
Yeah, I guess that's true, but that's
harassed by mean peoples.
I don't think that any MMO, other than giving like reporting tools, should ever even care about that. Like, that's my idea, but I know that it's not the idea of the community. Like, I want a built-in parser for every MMO of all time that has any DPS check. Because thank you. Why? You can't check our DPS without showing us.
But you know, and we don't have that. But we do have Gpose stickers.
That's true.
Oh, really quick.
No, Gpose stickers are a gift, and I will not see these two compared.
So really quick, there were changes to Monk. They involve perfect balance and keeping your stacks up. None of us play Monk, and none of us talk to any monks. We will talk to some monks before next week and let you know how they feel about the changes then.
Yeah, I want to talk to people about all the changes before we do next week.
For sure. And I think that Monk has suffered in the same way that Summoner has, right? Like, and we've talked about this because even though I don't actively play Monk, when I was leveling the melee classes, I was kind of baffled because, like, Monk was super fun to play, but it was at its core more complex. And yet, because of some of the stuff that has happened, I think that some of the more straightforward classes, like including Samurai and things, it's this weird conundrum, right? Where it almost becomes this question of, like, do we make classes that if people want, they can go to and get more skilled at, and then because of that skill ceiling, they can get really good at and do more damage? Or do we make it so that, like, no matter what you love, everybody's kind of the same, which then causes this problem of, well, why should I have to work as hard to just do the exact same DPS as a samurai or something? And so then it goes down further and further and further, where the classes either have to get simplified to make it all about the same amount of effort per DPS, or you have to acknowledge that there might be classes that, if played more skillfully, can optimize more, which can put a pressure on the community. But it's weird because, like, I've had some of the most fun ever this tier with Ninja, which I was totally surprised by. Like, I love it, and I love that they don't babysit you on the mudras. And the ninjutsu. Like, I love that you have to remember what they are. And that felt like old astrologian for me for a second.
Yes.
But
overall, I think the monk thing is a band-aid for now, and we'll probably see the adjustments in 6.0 as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of band-aids, isn't that one of our Gpose stickers?
Sorry, yes, here we go.
I actually don't know if there's a band. There are sunglasses, and I put the sunglasses on every minion sticker that I use. Because why the hell not? They're just there. They're sized perfectly. I can make a triple triad card of my Julia Chai minion with sunglasses.
I like it. It's good.
Greatest content ever. It's one of those things. Just when you think they can't add more to Gpose stickers, just this whole other new thing out of left field. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they're cute.
Have you guys played around? Like I've tweeted a couple of things, I think, but Aldi's just like, no.
I mean, I'm always Gposing, but I haven't used the stickers yet.
I was really tempted in some places during the MSQ to just go, I want a screenshot in this place, right? So yeah.
The one thing that I think is, go ahead.
I was gonna say the next thing I want you to put sunglasses on is the Crystal Tower. Just call it the Crystal Tower.
Yeah, done, easy.
Definitely.
Excellent. Excellent. I
think the old habit I'm gonna have to get out of is usually if I'm in Gpose, I do scroll lock to hide all the UI stuff to take the picture. But if you do that now, it removes the stickers, so you have to hit R on your keyboard.
Oh,
interesting.
At least there's a solution, I guess.
Fun fact for you. Yeah, because I was like, all right, this is great. I'm gonna scroll on. Where'd my Tonberry with sunglasses go?
Probably the cheapest way, like performance-wise, for them to get them in there is to make them
UI elements
that you can move around.
I'm sure. It's just a UI
it's always
layer.
Fun to hear how they're working around their systems.
But yeah, I think that's about the end. That's all the bigger stuff with this patch. Next week, we got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff coming up. So Tuesday, the 18th. That's weird. Tuesday. You don't do anything on Tuesdays.
Yeah. Wow.
But we are this time. We are turning 11 years old because we are old. So to celebrate, we are going to be running a Dungeon Siege stream. It'll be right here at 6 p.m. Pacific. We're just going to run some dungeons, hang out with you, and we'll be raffling off some game time codes. If you haven't seen it already, we also have some codes for the complete edition of Final Fantasy XIV for both PC and PS4. You can enter that. Go check out gamerscape.com for more information and go find our Dungeon Siege post for that. Next Saturday... Yeah, free stuff. Next Saturday is our patch 5.3 review. And as always, we will have a guest reviewer for that. And joining us for 5.3 will be Glenn Onhell. So that should be a very exciting episode. I'm looking forward to it. I wasn't here when we had Glenn on the first time, so I think it'll be a lot of fun to do that.
If you guys don't follow him on Twitter, do. Everything he puts up is gold.
He learns Japanese for his videos.
Yeah, man.
Week after that, the 29th, that'll be our patch 5.3 lorecast. So next week we'll start to get into some spoiler territory. 5.3, we're all in. We're just everything. We're grabbing James Cameron's submarine and we're just we're going down into the depths to get everything here.
How we're gonna fit it in that pool, I don't know, but we're gonna make it work.
We'll make it work. We'll pin particles.
Yeah.
Pin particles.
There you go.
Nerd references. All right.
You know.
All right. So if you want, you can email us aetheryte@gamerscape.com. You can tweet at us at Aetheryte Radio. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook. I hit the wrong button.
And Discord at Gamerscape.
Which button? This button. Yes. Aetheryte Radio, Gamerscape.com, tweet us, Aetheryte Radio, find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Discord at Gamerscape, discord.gg/Gamerscape. We also have our Aetheryte Radio channel on there where you can talk to us about the show. Thank you to everybody who supported us today, our new followers, our new subscribers. Be excellent to each other. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now. So, remember, especially week 1 patch, like, if people don't know mechanics, it's okay. You can be nice.
I'm thinking about raising, but I'm going to do it.
Right? People are coming back. Maybe they forget what a stack marker is. It's all good. We're all in this together. So we'll see you next week for our patch 5.3 review.
Tuesday.
And Tuesday for
See you later,
dungeons.
everybody. Yeah. Yes, and Tuesday for dungeons. Tune in. Free stuff.